Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. On this podcast, we have Jim from Rolla, Missouri, and he had a terrifying experience near Meramec Springs in the Woodson K Woods Conservation Area years ago. Jim had previously been on the channel, and we did a short, brief documentary on his experience, but this podcast will be much more detailed, and he walks us through the entire experience. In case you have never been to Meramec Springs Park in Missouri, I highly recommend that you check it out. It's a really cool trout fishing area, and the spring pours out of the ground and runs into the Meramec River. There is a lot of wildlife there, and it's a really cool place. This is an area that I've had Bigfoot experiences at growing up years ago, and it really terrified me, and I've always wondered what the heck was going on there. I have no doubt these creatures are in the area and all around central and southern Missouri. There's a lot of woods in this area, and whenever you're there, you just feel like something's watching you. You feel like you're really remote, and like if something happened, you possibly wouldn't make it out of there alive. It's just a feeling that this place gives you, and it's really isolated, and there's no service there. But yeah, with all that being said, let's dive straight into Jim's Bigfoot experiences from central Missouri. All right, James, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Miguel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for getting in contact with me and sharing your experience. You had some strange Bigfoot encounters and experiences at Meramec Spring Park in St. James, Missouri. If you would, tell me a little bit about yourself and your Bigfoot experiences from the very beginning, please.
Well, sure. First of all, I grew up in Rolla. I went to grade school, high school, and during my time growing up, I graduated in 1980. So through mainly the 70s and up in through the 80s, there wasn't a lot to do. We did our own stuff, and so getting out and fishing and hunting and mushrooms and just being out in nature was widely uh, you know uh, used activity by families, and it was nothing for people to get out. I'm not sure if it's done as much like that today because of this is pre-cell phone and everything. So yeah, I've hunted and fished all my life, and in this situation, Miguel, I was bordering Meramec Springs Park, just outside of St. James in the Whitson K Woods. And basically, we would come down 68, go past the park, and there's a boat ramp area there. And that is up above where the spring meets. Okay, so it's always low water and an easy put in. And that also borders what's called the Powell Ranch, which is a pretty big ranch. And I'm not sure that there was any hunting allowed on the Powell Ranch. I don't think there was, and possibly probably isn't still now. But we would put in there and we would float down past the park boundary and camp. So we were just basically the first gravel bar after you cross the boundaries of Meramec Park into Whitson K Woods, because the populations of deer and really nice does and bucks, healthy, and it was just like a honey hole, we called it. But it's kind of like a great spot, the best spot that us young guys, could travel to locally and pretty much fill our freezers. But we would put in, and it was called the annual. This particular year was my ninth year. My friend Larry and Larry Wagner, and that's a family that's grown up in the Ozarks. I think they're would be pioneers. Um, they've been here so long, and they're still here today. Their family, Larry's passed on, But he and I would fill our John boat with all the food and supplies for the whole uh, 10 days. We'd be the first ones to go, and we all, depending on, we do scouting, but depending on if there's any activity of people or anything, we would at least go 1 to 2 days early. So we would ensure that spot. So we'd get floated down, and we'd get hooked up in there and set everything up. And we were also the first to, after we would get landed in there, we could do our scouting ahead of any groups. And this is a wild place. Okay, there's a lot of people put in and float by that because it's just right there where you put in. No one stops, you know, uh, 15, 20, 30 minutes from where you were and sets up camp. You've got, miles of river. And this particular spot, you could access it off of the 68 highway, but it was almost 7 miles to, and it dead ended at a conservation cabin down there. So this is uh, um, a set of our forestry, and it ran along the river that people didn't access, especially the park closed at dark. The trout fishing season and during the months of October when we were there ended, and so the park closed at dark, and it was as wild and unforgiving, I guess, as you could get. If you got in any kind of trouble out there, um, it could be really serious by the time you got any emergency personnel or could get to you. First of all, there was no phone. There was, when we started years that was prior to cell phones, but um, in this particular year, the bag phones had been out. They still had cellular bag phones, so we threw a rope over a branch and had a 25-foot um, cable cord hooked to the end of the magnetic antennas like you had for your cars. And we actually got a couple bars just in case, and we ran that off a car battery. But that was just the last year, because if you did get in trouble, there was no way to really get out. And going up, uh, it was all downhill from 68 to the camp, but going up would be, it would tax anybody without a vehicle. But what's strange too is this: all the years I've hunted down in, and like I said, this was my ninth year. The conservation cabin never got used. And I just thought that was so strange until I hunted the lowland, the floodplain that was kind of along the river. There's a kind of it's terraced a little bit. So you have basically the lowest point that would, just gradually go over to the river, which was probably, the cabin was within, like your yard. You just walk down the side yard, you're at the river. But um, I would say I was, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards away from any water sound. So you really couldn't hear the river rumbling or any water sound at all. And a lot of the times, which is also strange, is there would be no deer, none, no sound, but you couldn't. We were camped along the river all the days, and you couldn't ever tell if the cricket stopped, or other than just animal movement. And we would go, well, I killed mine here the second week that we were there. So the whole first week, I set up and I actually moved my stand twice, and because there was just no movement, it wasn't some things had changed. So the second day, or the second site, I moved my tree stand to. And anybody knows, when you go camping down into the woods, and um, I've, it's a lot of work. I don't want to sound like we're wimpy, or uh, to completely set yourself up in the middle of nowhere is a lot of work, and it's hard work. So, just moving your stand, and you're in the national forest and you're not allowed to nail anything or do anything. You have to put, basically screw in tree steps, and nothing can be permanent. And to move those things and kind of like stealthily by yourself is a lot of hard work. And anyway, I got up into this area, and for the first time, everyone is hunting in the woods, and there's always something out there, and it's scary. But at this particular time, and I'm no kid, and I was rode up here, and the Ozark folks are hardworking, pretty strong and thick-necked guys, and we're used to going out. We're used to getting a little scared or nervous, and usually ended up laughing ourselves. But in this particular situation, I went up there and I got to a point where deer, I was set up on the point of a funnel, and the deer action, I was getting a lot of deer, but they were always moving and sometimes even running. I was like, what the heck? I didn't, I knew no one was back in there hunting because, I'd been up there for 5 days. There's nobody back in there. So I said, you know what? I'm going to move on back on the ridge a little away from this, and maybe I can catch them, just gathering and moving along better. So as I pulled my stand and I got to a point where there was like a little field and like a little fire road that went off, and I stopped there and I got the worst feeling. And this is really kind of the first time I felt like, boy, this isn't, something's not right. You should leave. But I didn't. I kind of like, I just kind of was confused. And I chose to go not follow that fire road, to just kind of cut off of that and follow the ridge line. And it was pretty thick, so I had to put up what at the time was like a bread tie with the reflective tape on it. It was called Luma lights, or lim light, but it wasn't battery operated. If you just hit it with your pen light, the reflection, and that's what I would use to follow myself, usually to my stand the first or second time till I felt comfortable in the night. But I got up to that point that next morning. I got it set up. I felt weird, and I had time to hunt, but I didn't. I left. I said, "Oh, I'll just let it settle down." That's what I told myself, thinking maybe I won't feel this way when I come back. Well, I got up there, and sure enough, there was the little cutoff from the road, and I started in through these just sprouts where I could see my reflective bread ties all the way, 25, 30 yards through there. They were great. I got in the middle, about halfway through these, about most 3/4 of the way to my stand. And this thing's probably, I don't know, I just moved it 250, 300 yards probably up the ridge. Pretty good ways. But I got up there, and the hair on my back and my arms, and I wanted to turn around and leap, but I didn't. I just didn't feel like I should, because I didn't feel safe. I did make it to my stand because it was closer, and I got up in my stand, and for no reason at all, at daylight, just as soon as I could see, I got down and left. Well, this is the fifth day. That I don't know, another 2 or 3 days went on. I didn't discuss this with the guys I was hunting with, because it would just be a comical thing to them. And it'd be, you're down there in deer camp, so nothing was ever mentioned. But everyone pretty much, this is the just fast forward to the, and during the night, let me go back, during the night, hearing hoot owls communicating, and we heard a lot of coyote sounds. And into the night, Usually the owls were on our side of the river, and the coyotes seemed to be on the other side toward the Powell Ranch area up in there. But this particular night, it had stormed and rained the last 2 days, and everyone had left the camp. And Larry and I, of course, we had one day to go to our 10th day. And we were always the last people to leave to make sure everything was cleaned up and you left it the way it was when you got there, or better. Okay, you wanted to make it as pristine as you could. Anyway, we were in my tent. I had a 8-foot dome tent, and it was a gift from my mom and dad, a birthday present. And I was really eager to use it that year. And it was awesome. And Larry and I were inside there. What we'd done is basically packed up everything and had the boat, loaded up so we could leave when we wanted to. We didn't have to kill ourselves the next morning. And we were just in there winding our day down and talking and kind of recapping. And we heard the owls go off, and they were uh, not up really in the woods area. It didn't sound like that. It sounded like they were still in the floodplain, which was, the plain out there, the flats out there were, could be 200-300 yards and go for a half a mile. And then you go to another spot and it'd be the same. So there was a lot of flat land with no trees really, just a lot of fields, and they plant milo and sunflowers in there, and so they would put some food crops, and the animals really benefited because they were always hit hard um, by it. And of course, I was up on the ridge, and that's where they would go, which kind of made me believe it to go back in my story that that's why they were running. But they weren't running from that. There was something up there, and when I moved my stand up there, and let you know, when I left there, I didn't hunt that spot. Okay, I got down that morning and I went back to camp, and I settled myself down enough to when it was about midday, I went and pulled it, and I did put it up in down by the conservation cabin, like I was telling you where, and I did kill a deer in there, but it was moving and it looked frightening. Everything up in this area looked frightening. So here we are going back now to the tent. And who started going off? Barn owls, I figured, because these weren't just like your regular little hoot owl that as big as your forearm. These, barn owls are really big and they make huge nests. So hearing the screeching going through the forest is common. So we had two of them kind of communicating, and they got closer. Um, they were quite a ways apart. I would say, gosh, I don't know, a good distance where I don't think if I hollered at them, they could hear me. But they could screech and hoot so loud that it was really traveling. Well, we're sitting in my dome tent, and it's like a little glow in the middle of the forest. Like a little Christmas globe, I would think, because we had a little lantern, and it was chilly. Everything was zipped up. And all of a sudden, Larry motioned to me that he heard movement. And, remember, we're by the river. So you always have that river noise. Uh, but in this particular incident, now that I realized that Larry heard steps. And so it was bipedal movement. And this is a sandy, kind of a grassy, area all behind us. It's not like there was tons of leaves or anything. So it had to be, something heavy, in my opinion, to make any kind of a noise to where we could hear that over the river. But Larry motioned to me, and it went around him and it went basically right next to me. And when it got next to me, I never really heard it walking up. It came by Larry, and it walked and stopped, and Larry's pointing the whole time. And I'm shaking my head, and um, then I heard one coming to my left. This one came from my right, and I heard steps, and I most okay. I hear there's people here. There's something outside here. Well, before we could really make any kind of a decision, like, on who's going out first, okay? And we never hollered out. It's pitch. It's as dark as, it's probably only 8 o'clock at night, but it's as might as well be. It's as dark as it gets anyway. When the woods are dark, you can't see anything. Anyway, I told Larry, whispered to Larry and motioned. I said, unzip the window and look out. He said, no. This thing, he knew whatever was out there was big. Well, before we could do, much of anything else, it started hooting. We heard a hooting above the tent. And it really, I didn't really realize that at the time, while I was sitting there and this was going on, there was no tree limb or anything above my tent. So, this thing, it wasn't right on the fabric. So I would say it was close to 10 feet, maybe, because I had I'm 5'10", and I could stand up in this dome tent, and it had a net in it, and I could lay like stuff up there to dry, and it still had another foot or two. And I'm thinking, if this thing's a foot or two above that, it's got to be big. But it started out, ooh, 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 ooh. The other one never answered. Okay, now there's just one calling out, and it started off gentle, whoo, 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 and then it turned into. Just have to give me a second. God, when I bring myself back to this, it just really was impactful.
Yeah, I understand. Take your
This
time.
this thing, it went from just a regular little, hoot that when you're turkey hunting, you'll give a little, uh, hoot owl call, kind of get a reaction from them. It's kind of like that, and there wasn't nothing. And then it went into this kind of a screech. When this thing screeched, though, it was now it's a barn owl screech. I mean, really kind of like wow. Um, this thing, whatever it is, it's right there, and it was intimidating. Well, it never stopped. Okay, we're into kind of a screeching, and then it went into like a little like a monkey. I, best I could say, kind of went from the and it was screeching, and then it went into like a little monkey. Like I can't, not a very good sound maker, but it was like a little monkey you'd see in the TV that was friendly, and as it was the hooting, then it kind of sounded kind of to me like more of an orangutan as it went from young, and now it's kind of maturing into like like this orangutan sound, and from that it went into a gorilla. Um, this was like the most demented, evil owls I got, and this sound is penetrating my body. Okay, and it went on and on and on. The lung capacity. This thing never took a breath. And when it screamed, I guess there's got to be something to it, Miguel, because the next thing I remember, and I know the other two never said or done anything, but when this thing was screaming, the pictures that were going through my mind as I pictured this creature or entity grabbing my tent like a sack of potatoes and just either slinging us up against the ground or the rocks on the river there, or just dragging us where they wanted, because we were like just zipped up as tight, and or taking a club and just beating us with it. So the understanding I got was, you're not welcome here now, and you need to, and to go, okay, to follow on after that. The next sound I heard was the hoot owl call on the other side of the river, and it had to be 200 yards away. And then the other two answered, and they called each other just with hoot owl till they got close, and then it turned into coyotes. I know there's at least three of them, because that's what surrounded us and answered. But when they went off, they sounded it had to be them, unless they were standing right there with the coyote pack, unless the coyotes in them have something, because they went off and this thing sounded like just like, well, it was like the most coyotes carrying on and fighting and nipping and what they do. And what boggles me about it is I guess I was in shock, because there had to be, I don't know how they got from my tent all the way across the river and into that field and started that quickly. So maybe it wasn't that quickly. Maybe I was in a trance or something, because when I looked over at Larry, he was still sitting at the same that we were both. We don't never moved, you know, and we didn't get out of the tent probably for another 30 minutes, you know. But I guess there's something to that sound when it went through us. I think it caused some kind of trauma or shock, and maybe, I don't know if they can do that when you hear them roaring. If they're doing that to like prey, that, I mean, I don't really remember them leaving or crossing. An animal that big, you can hear them cross the river, because I've heard it, but I never heard them. So it boggles me about that. But you know, it wasn't. Also during that week, it was strange too. I had a rock thrown at me, and it wasn't thrown at me. It landed. We were just out there I had a little kind of a sandy spot right there at the river talking, and all of a sudden I saw a rock hit the little sandbar there. Just came out of the field. I just picked it up, threw it right back. I didn't realize that, I didn't really know about Bigfoots or Sasquatches or anything, and we didn't, Momo and everything was talked about and back then, but I never believed in that kind of stuff, and I was never thought that I would be scared of anything in the woods, because there's always something out there. But after this day, I've personally, I've learned to trust my instincts, number one, because, they're real. And just so you know, I never did see it, but I sure heard it. And I heard it walk up. Well, I didn't hear the first one until it was a step away. And maybe a step is far. These things are extremely fast, but what I've learned is that I trust my instincts. And if you're your body's telling you to leave, I suggest you do so. And what I experienced, I what I was taught wasn't real. Those things aren't real. And after I learned that there are things out there that we can't explain, and although I was a Christian and I actively, attended the church, I really had belief that, listen, if this thing and this it could have killed us, and I had every feeling that if I opened a my tent, and if I moved or if I did anything, I could I felt like I would be harmed. And that was that some kind of nothing spoke to me. This is just a feeling, and I think when aggressions are put out and adrenaline starts to flow, I think in us as humans, we others can feel that. Well, this was a feeling that was dreadful, and I think it was. I don't know really what the reason was, other than everyone else had left, and it's time for you to leave too. And that was our weakest time in there. Of course, as for them, it was really a good time to come up. But where we were camped after I thought was an old tie crossing, and it's in the on the maps. And what that was a bridge made out of railroad ties, basically, um, to cross the river there. And that's what they would cross the wagons, and go and cut wood and bring it back in and wagon it into the park to the blast furnaces. And that's why, a lot of Powell Ranch and a lot of Meramec Springs Park out through there is all, fields, and for the deer to just, happily and healthfully, gorge themselves on. And then, of course, and all that activity supplied that over, I don't know how many years that went on, but I mean, it supplied this part of the country. So, the forages down there, which is pretty interesting. So those woods and everything, I've found more mushrooms that I could ever carry, and the deer were always running over each other. I mean, it was kind of um, uh, pitiful in a way. There were so many of them, and if you missed one, by golly, you sure chances were good you'd sure get another you get another try. So I could understand why these creatures live down there. And of course, you have the spring that runs under and comes out there, and it really flows hard. And of course, once you get to that point in the river, there's all kinds of pockets of rainbow trout. And, you have a park that closes and they raise those trout in there. And there's monsters. I mean, there's monster trout in there, but you never hear about any of them being missing, and you got to know those animals. I mean, that's just a smorgasbord for them. There's everything, and it's non-populated. They close that area, and it borders back. And if you ever make it back that far into Whitson Cave Woods, that's as deep and as wild. I don't think a lot of people have really, I mean, explored that area, especially in the last 20 or 30 years, and when I was back in there, I walked in areas that looked like people never really been in. So that's how wild it is. So this is, I can only speak for the month of October, but I kind of think there's a clan of them in there, and there's a alpha, and I've never heard that roar of all the years in there. And I've heard weird sounds, and but I've understood the fox can make a cry, and that'll make your skin crawl too. And you get into a lynx or other cats, they can really get their voices up. But when you encounter these cryptids, you won't mistake it. You won't ask you, what do you think that was? The only reason you would say that is because you actually don't know. And the answer is, I don't know. That was our, what was that? And of course, we didn't really know the thing, or, we'd encounter a Bigfoot. But the way that thing could change, and, yeah, I've heard birds at night too, and whistles. I think they whistle, and, and it's amazing. And let's just go back. We fly in the air. We've sent spacecraft into, you know orbiting our planets, and we are so advanced. What would make you think these animals, who are probably here before us, way before us, aren't as advanced or even more advanced? I think that they're tied into some kind of intelligence, because how could you hear that animal? And these things are big. Even the little ones are loud. When they want you to hear 'em walking, there's no mistaking that. But flip your light on. They're right there. You flip your light on, there ain't nothing there. I can't tell you that. Other than that's kind of like paranormal, but it isn't, because you know, paranormal don't, you'll hear a couple steps up or something maybe, but these things are following you, and you can walk and stop and, okay, trot a little bit. If you kind of pick up the pace, they will too. And I don't understand that, other than there's some kind of something to their hair, I think, that's on them, that they can camouflage. They can walk behind a tree, and now all of a sudden you can't see them anymore. What happened to that? So there's some kind of something. It's not, okay, I'm behind something, they can't see me, presto changeo, I'm disappeared now. I don't think it works like that. I think they're there. I just think that they change a spectrum that we can't see them or something. It's hard to really process, because when you look, you get night vision. You All of a sudden something goes and you follow it, and now it's gone. I can't explain those things, Miguel, but I've experienced them. And it feels good to really talk about it in a way, and it's some closure to me. But I was asked a year back, that, Jim, we ought to, one of the guys that attended the annual, he said, Jim, we ought to go back in there before we're too old to set that up and hunt in there. And I said, well, Keith, I said, Larry and I experienced a Bigfoot in there, and I don't really feel too comfortable about going back. And he looked at me with bright eyes and never said another word. So the experiences are real. I'm sure that the others that were with us, in our group, experience things they've held and really don't feel comfortable about, and so I hope this, you know, uh, gives people the encouragement and the uh, reason, I guess, to share their stories about that area. Um, Thinking back to the years when I was younger, I heard those things all the time. And now that I'm older and I've experienced, and I'm more honest to myself, you kind of like think of every excuse you can think of, but you can't really make an excuse for something standing next to you, and, okay, it maybe, and vibrate through my body and stun me. you know, I don't know how long it sounded like that went on a long time, and then the next time they were far away. And so I don't know how long I sat there as like a statue, and with my mind in brain lock or something. It could have been, I don't know, and if we never looked at a watch, it could have been a couple seconds, could have been 20 minutes. I don't know. So anyway, that's my encounter, Miguel, and
All
you
right, Jim.
know,
I appreciate you for sharing that with me. And the
sure.
Meramec Spring area is a hot spot for Sasquatch in Crawford County, Missouri. And the surrounding forest, Woodson K Woods, is a remote area. And this is the area where I had some encounters and experiences, and I talk about them all the time on my channel. And I'm going to run through them real quick in case people haven't heard them before. But basically, I think it was in 2018, I got off work at a meat processing plant, and it was September 14th. The reason I remember that date is because it was the day before opening bow season, and I went into this new area to scout this woods because my boss told me that that place is just covered with deer. It's a very good area for a bow hunter to have success. So I went in there after work. It was probably, I would say, around 4 p.m. in the day. And I was driving down, I think it was Bessemer Road or Brennan Road. And it's the backside of Woodson K, closer to Cuba, Missouri. But when I got to the very last parking lot at this Red Ribbon fishing area, I parked my Mustang and I got out and I looked over the cliff. You could see all of Woodson K. Well, not the whole thing, but you can see a big chunk of it, and you can see the Meramec River down below. This is a huge cliff. And I just kind of stood there and looked for a little bit and then walked back to my vehicle. Well, whenever I was walking back to my vehicle in the woods, this is on the private land side. I'm on public, and there's like a divide right there. I see this black creature on all fours running, and I thought initially it was a black bear. Like, that's got to be a black bear. Whatever it is, it's huge. Maybe it's a group of turkeys moving together, because sometimes they'll clump up together and kind of run through the woods. And then I thought it was a hog. Like, maybe it's hogs. I can't tell what it is. Well, finally, whenever I got a good look at the creature, I was looking at a big oak tree, and all I see is this big black arm slowly hide behind the tree. And I just stood there confused, like, what the heck is this? If that's a black bear, it's a very intelligent creature to know to hide behind the tree like that real slow. And I stood there, everything was quiet, and I never saw the creature again. So I just kind of walked back to my vehicle, and I was thinking, man, that's weird. So I got all my stuff ready that evening, and I packed it up in my vehicle, and I went down there the next day on opening bow season, and I sat there in that parking lot that next morning. You could see the sun coming up. It had like this orange color in the sky, and it was really dark, and I just got a bad feeling, like, don't go in there, Miguel. I don't know. It was just my gut feeling telling me that something was off. And to get to to get into Woodson K Woods, you had to go down a cliff, and this is not a small cliff. Like, it's a huge cliff. And then you have to cross the Meramec River, and then you're on Woodson K property. And I don't know, something told me don't go in there, because if it was a black bear, it's like, I don't want to go in there if there's a black bear in the dark carrying my XOP hunt stand and my bow and my backpack. I just got a bad feeling. So I never went in there and hunted, but I think it was a Sasquatch, because later on I seen them at my place, and that's exactly what the juvenile did. It scurried on all fours just like that, got up to a big tree, and slowly hid. And then whenever I seen that juvenile, I was like, man, this is exactly what I seen by Meramec Springs. And then I thought to myself, well, whatever this is, it's gone, it hid, and I'm never going to be able to figure out what it is. A few seconds after that thought, the creature steps out from behind the tree, and I'm looking at this little juvenile. It's probably about 4.5 feet tall, jet black, had a conical shaped head, and it looked alien. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Some people say they look human. Some people say they look primate. I think primates look pretty human, and it just looked like a gorilla with extreme intelligence. And the creature just kind of panned around, and whenever he saw me, his eyes bulged out of his head, and he shot down behind the tree like a fish. And it was, I guess he ducked down is the best way to say it, but he moved so fast, And whenever he hid behind the tree, he was just gone. Like, he didn't take off running. You didn't hear anything after that. It was just poof, gone. And another experience that I had was later on in the fall that year. I went on the other side of Woodson K Woods. If you go past Meramec Springs from Stillville going into St. James, like you pass the park, there's another entrance to Woodson K Conservation Area. Well, I set up my tree saddle pretty far in there. I would say I was probably like a mile and a half in there. It was a long walk. And I was in my stand all day long, and I started getting burnt out. Well, towards the end of the day, I was like, man, did I bring my flashlight? I hope I did not forget my flashlight, because I don't want to take down all my equipment in the pit, like in the dark, because I don't want to leave anything behind. It's pretty expensive equipment. And if I lose something, I got to walk all the way back there just to get it. So I was like, all right, I don't have my flashlight. This sucks. So right whenever it was getting dark, I started climbing down my tree stand or my tree saddle. And as I was climbing down, I look into the field and there's a buck. And I thought, man, what are the odds? As soon as I climb down, this buck's in the middle of the field. Well, he's looking at me, and I'm hugging the tree, getting ready to get down. So I just freeze. I'm like, all right, I'm going to wait until he cools off. Maybe he didn't really see me. And whenever he starts feeding, I'm going to climb back up into my stand and wait for him to come. So I slowly moved into my stand, and he's looking at me like, what are you doing the whole time? Like, I don't know, like squinting his eyes, kind of look like a llama. And well, whenever I make a move to get back in my tree saddle and hook myself up, he trots off across the field, and I was like, oh man, I blew it. So I get down anyways, tear down my stand, pack everything up, and I'm walking out of the park. And by this point, it's completely dark. And as I'm walking this road, there's food plots all along the road, left and right. And whenever I'm walking past the food plots, you can hear deer just taking off everywhere. I mean, this area is dense with deer, just like you said. And as I'm walking through there, I hear this noise coming up behind me. And as soon as I hear it, it passes by me. And it's two younger guys on e-bikes. And I thought, okay, it's just people on e-bikes. Well, I mean, as soon as they passed me, they were gone because they were booking it, and everything got quiet again. So I'm walking, and then I hear this creature walking next to me in the woods. I mean, it sounded like a huge buck or like a mountain lion. I would walk, it would walk. Whenever I stopped, it stopped. And then this would continue. So I started picking up the pace, and I was like, man, I can't run. Whatever this is, it's huge. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to drop my equipment and just take off running, because it's expensive. Like, I have all my gear. There's no way I'm leaving it. So I just booked it. Like, I wasn't running, but I was walking really fast, and this creature followed me all the way out of the area. And I knew whatever it wasn't good. And actually, 2 weeks ago, I talked to an Ozark Trail hiker at the gym, and we were talking about areas to hike at. And he said, in this exact same spot he was hiking, he said, I was walking and this creature was following me. I would stop, it would stop. He said, I was with a friend, and he said this thing came down the hill and started running at us. And he said I had to throw my hands up and say, get out of here. So I didn't say anything about Bigfoot, but I was like, I had the same experience there in the same exact spot. You know, how unusual is that? And I've had some other experiences downriver from the spring at some private land. I talk about that on my channel too. Me and the ex-girlfriend were camping. We did some wood knocks, some calls, because we were watching the show Finding Bigfoot. We were just kind of being silly. Well, a huge tree crashed down after we did the wood knocks across the river. And I mean, you could feel the boom. I mean, boom. Like, you could tell it was like a fresh, big green oak tree or maple tree. And then we just kind of shrugged it off because we were confused. Like, what the heck? That's weird that a tree fell as soon as we were doing wood knocks and calls, and there was zero wind that day. And then about 30 minutes after that or so, it was dark. We were sitting by the fire, and something screamed behind us. I mean, it was a loud, terrifying scream. Just, I mean, it rattled your insides. And
it's intimidating.
Yeah, sure. It is for sure. But I've had a lot of experiences in that area, and there's icons on the Bigfoot Mapping Project, which is a map that logs down people's encounters. They're all around this area. But yeah, it's a hot spot for Bigfoot. I go in there doing research, but I never find any tree structures. I find strange breaks, things like that, but there's so many different logging roads that you can take and so many different
Yes.
access points, and the river just kind of snakes around through the whole area. But here's another strange thing. After I had these encounters, whenever I was at Meramec Springs, I talked to the guy at the front desk, and we were talking about hunting, and he was telling me that it's a great place to deer and turkey hunt. And then I asked him, "Are there any Sasquatch in this area? Have people ever reported Bigfoot?" And he like froze up, and he kind of looked down at the ground and was kicking rocks with his feet, and he's like, "No, no, 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 no one has." And you could tell he was holding back, like he knew something.
I think so.
Yeah,
If you spend any time around those areas, and I think it's high probability that you'll have some kind of encounter you can't really explain.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it,
absolutely. When
it
these,
wasn't uncommon. Like you're telling me, the steps, the trees, the whistling too. A lot of whistling I've heard down there. Um, and until it always made kind of myself feel better. I think by saying, "Oh, that's just probably some kind of a uh, nocturne on some bird, or just it wasn't." Because it's always not just a scream song. It's just a mimic of birds, but it's more of a whistle. And it's not so much that as when they return it and communicate. So those things are from a kid. I can remember them all. I'm 64 now, and I just don't think anything's changed. That's so old, that area you're discussing, and I just think there's clans of them, and it's where they should be. I mean, if you really think about it, Miguel, I mean, that's where, if they're going to live in peace, and have a bounty for them and their their clans, that would be a great place in the Ozarks for them. As many pockets like that are, but I don't think that there's one or two either. I think there's a lot of them. I think there's our governments, are not sharing that with us. But maybe when as disclosure gets more um popular, I guess, in the mainstream, people will. These are, to me, are very powerful and alpha. But today, I don't want to. I've never, just so you know, also I've never hunted again since then. Um, I don't really. I go in the woods. I like to have a firearm. Not that I think that could hurt them, but it's something, because I've never felt more helpless than and unprotected. But at the other end of this is, if you harm one of those creatures, they're not going to let you do that. They're never alone. I don't think they ever travel alone, and you may never hear the other one, but they're there. And I just think they are smart, and everything is calculated with them. And there you go. To go into the missing people. You get these guys that said, "Hey, man, this guy was an experienced hunter. He was an expert. What happened to him?" I kind of got an idea. Well, it's just a theory, but you'd think, "Oh my God, I'll go out there." Yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. So, um, I wouldn't even dream of, documenting them, but I think they know when you have a firearm, and they'll protect themselves accordingly. And let me tell you, these things can throw rocks, and I think they could throw a rock like a shotgun, and you never hear it coming. They could take you. They could take you. But I think they are very efficient, and it's it it. I love nature. I go into the woods, like I said, but I always protect myself now, and for that only reason is, you never know. You're out there, and all of a sudden, you say, wow, what happened to the crickets, the birds, and on, and then the only sound you hear is something strange. And so I encourage people though to enjoy the woods and the forests and learn about nature. That those animals, creatures, had every opportunity to harm us. And over years and years, we've never been harmed. No one. But I'm going to tell you, the message I got that evening, and it didn't do anything that, other than we'd been there a couple weeks and it was time to go. And he was on the scene now. And, they'd done things all the way up through there that I didn't even think about. And I never did till I had my encounter. And now, like I said, if those things could exist or anything, and it really enforced my belief in God. So I really mean that. So, and you have to, I guess, my experience speaks for itself within me. But those things are those creatures. They're real, and they have members with them. I don't know if you could say family members, Miguel, but let's look at it as, they're not alone and they're a unit, meaning they care and watch out for each other. So these are living, you know, you know, I guess members of groups and clans that raise families and have to provide and watch out for and protect um, themselves. Teach just the same way we do. And, to encounter them is really special. And I know a lot of people spend their lives out in the woods and they can always account for things they encounter out there. I can't say I've been all over the world in the military, and I've done a lot of things in Canada up there in the Yukon Territory. I've seen bears, the elks, lots of bobcats. There's no sound or motion or anything I ever experienced like that. And I think about it every day. And don't get me wrong, I'm not all day, but that is always in the back of my mind. And I think a lot of is not being able to really openly talk about it to anybody, or just anybody, because um, people try to make more out of it within you than the experience you're trying to talk. Kind of blame it on you. And it's just a strange thing, and it changed my life in a good way. But
Yeah.
I hope everyone has a profound moment that really makes you understand how special life is and how there's many things out there yet to understand and try to discover. And I've carried that with me a long time. And I've had other encounters, and I don't, with creatures, and which makes me think that I some people that I don't really. There's some people that are open to experiencing these things, and I'm not sure um, how that works. But since then, I've had other accounts that just were really scary, and but it were real, and eh, there's things I hope, our governments and other people, if we could really get people to come out and talk about these things, we could probably really get a great understanding and possibly even close the book on this, without having to kill one of them or, you know, um, I just before we close, and I'm kind of spending too much time, I know, rambling about these occurrences because I have I've had a lot, but um, I heard them gibber. I heard them talking. Um, but to me, it's kind of sounded like hollow, like a flutish kind of sound. I can't really put an instrument on it, but it was kind of like it was a communication, and I kind of explain it as kind of gibberish, kind of and I heard that before daylight, and in that same ridge up on right above that conservation cabin there, and um, they were communicating, so they can talk. These are really intelligent, advanced, and creatures or beings are with a purpose. So they have children, they have babies, they also have older ones, and I'm sure they love them the way we love. We love our animals, and we love our children and our family members. We'll do anything to protect them and to provide for them and to watch over them. And I don't think they're any different. And if you go in there and to their home and you are inappropriate, I think they'll either, in a lot of cases, get run out if you get too close, or harmed. If you harm them, I mean, I strictly, want to let people know, don't think you're going to go in and for whatever reason you're scared, and they like me. This thing is right next to me. I mean, right there. And if I were to harm that animal, I wouldn't be here telling you this today. But it didn't do anything. So just go through the fright of it. Don't if having a weapon makes you feel better, and I just told you I like to carry one to make me feel better, because there's other things out there too that and I'm not talking cryptids that in the woods that you don't want to come face to face with a Bowie knife. Okay, so that's why but I would never consider ever after that day. I always thought, what's going to stop my 30-06. Well, I'll tell you something, that would. I just don't. It was so big and powerful. I just and the other ones with them, what would you do? I mean, if you're out there and that's your that and someone comes in and they're harming your loved ones or taking away from you, where your family will suffer, you will defend that. And I think that's all they're doing. And a lot of these missing people, these hunters and people that go into the woods are pretty fearless. And you know, I wouldn't expect anyone to go out there for the first time and not feel emotion, because that's where you really kind of connect with your inner self in a lot of ways, because your senses come back, your sixth senses all come alive in time with that. Nature is amazing. And the closer you get to that, you're gonna have experiences. And firearms are great, but I wouldn't. I just want to close with that. Don't go out there and try to take one of these animals or beings and think you're going to be famous. I think you should go out and document them, because they're kind of letting us a little. I mean, you have to catch them, but no one's being harmed. But I I've heard of stories of people not coming back, and I think that's probably a possibility of doing it. And we could all, pretty much anyone that's grew up in the Ozarks out here, you get in trouble for a night or two out there, and you're going to make it, because we grew up. Shoot, I was a Cub Scout the first time I went, camping in groups on the rivers out of way. You know, it's just something kind of taught, to everyone, all of us, because that's why we're here. We love the Ozarks, and it has a lot to offer, and it's not our shopping. It's our wilderness areas and our great conservation programs, and all these things are available, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. Of course, all the gadgets we get are so high tech now. You have to take a second job to kind of keep up with it, but um, advanced or not, you go out there in these areas, and we've revealed this location, and I hope it encourages people to tell their um, interactions there, you know. But please don't, go in there and get hurt, because the one I encountered, that Sasquatch, it wasn't kidding. And I don't feel like, I mean, we didn't do anything wrong, other than, I think that's just how this was the main one, the alpha uh, of this clan. And I knew it, and so did Larry. And, it's something I never, and I've walked a mile under the ground as a hard rock miner. I've hunted and fished really all over, the U.S. My brother that's all he does. My father was born in Appalachia in Kentucky, and he taught his sons, how to hunt and fish, and we've grown to love it. And, you know, uh, that was a weird occurrence, but, and I know they're there, and you could probably go, eventually it'll be a big thing when someone gets a photograph or videos of these things. For some reason, I think they can see that in the infrared or something.
Hmm.
I think they can see those things, because really, Miguel, the more low tech, these things come in. If they can come in, and they will. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's always one of them, or if you're in their area, or in their uh, I think they have areas that these clans are. That's why they put markers. You'll see markers out in the woods, and I've seen trees stuck in the ground upside down with the roots. Okay, and I don't know how they do that. Like, they pull it out and there's a hole there, and that must take. I don't see how one could do it. Maybe, but maybe. But if you've ever seen that, that's some kind of a boundary, and I don't see, uh, you know, two trees stuck in the middle of a ridge top, out and nothing else around it. That's just really strange. And so that all makes sense to me. And I'm pretty sure that's what they do because of the tree structure. And like you were saying too, in the Whitson K Woods area, I never seen a lot of tree structures. I've sat in actually like a couple I called natural blinds that they could have, but like for being so active in that area, I'm really surprised that uh, wasn't a lot of tree structure, which makes me kind of want to believe maybe they're in a cave, or in some kind of a spot that isn't traveled, and so they could only the other. Maybe deep in their area or something, but that's the only thing that's strange. And one other thing I want to add is I didn't smell it. So, and I have smelled, listen, I've smelled that nasty death smell in the woods, and it kind of, you always kind of accredit it to that animal somewhere or something. You never, the stronger it gets, the more you look, you never see the animal. So but this particular, when they came in on us, three of them, that, down on the river there, that's so strange. So what makes me think too about, hearing them so far away, I think there's something, some kind of telepathy. I, I'm not, I'm a blue collar guy. I'm not very in the know about this mind stuff, but I think they might have like put me uh put me in some kind of a not shock, I guess. Yeah, I've heard of like there's cats like lions, or not lion, or maybe that they can look at you, and when they look at you, if you look them in the eye, it stuns you for a second. It kind of like bewilders you, and that gives them that edge, that second they need to jump to get you to, and maybe that's kind of somewhere along the lines, although I didn't look these in the eyes. And I'm also, I've seen eye shine. I've seen bright yellow eye shine in the Whitson woods, and I've also seen red. And these aren't uh, like just regular small animals or deer or deer. I mean, their eyes reflect just these are really not reflections. More to say other than just revealing. I can't say like I see any when I've ever shined them, and it's been two times I've got eyes like that, big eyes, and I can't say that they like were reflect like a deer's eyes. When my light hits them, they're there. It's kind of like I don't see them. I've never seen them glowing in the. I've always had to shine my light, and I've seen that, and that's weird too. But I don't know what you accredit that to. Owls or some kind of creature I've learned about. Maybe it is, but like I said, after that occurrence, there's something out there that I'm not. I wouldn't say that needs to be discovered because I think it has been. And how could our governments not want to not know that? And I just, if I was a conservation agent and spent any time out in these areas, kind of like you and I, casually, how could they not? So, is it a train of thought, or is it just an ordering? If you've ever served in the government and went on things with the military, especially, you don't discuss these things under any circumstances, or you could be reprimanded. So, these guys come forward, these folks come forward, it could cost them their jobs and their, ridicule and, their family and everything. So, um, uh, that's the best I could say. And it's, I hope more people come forward as, to speak on anything else other than, I, aliens and all that. I couldn't tell you.
Mhm.
I wouldn't know about that. Listen, I'm not going to doubt any of that. But as far as Sasquatch or Momo, I experienced that, and I'll stand by that till I'm off this earth. And it was profound. Um, it shook me to the core, and I'm not. Am I afraid of them? You damn right I am. But it's more respect than anything else, and I think I would be just fine around them. Other than I've got some handicaps and some cuts and some repairs on my body, and I think they can key on that. I think they come after a week like predators would. So would I do it by myself? Would I go out there and wander around in the middle of nowhere by myself like I used to? I don't think so. But would I like to discover them? I would, and the more you understand that the seriousness of it, really. Um, I'd like to just say this is a weekend, and let's all go out and have a great time, and doing that is a great time. But understand, you're hunting a alpha predator or one of its clan. It could be its children, its wife, it's who knows, but there's an alpha that's responsible for them. And I experienced him, and that's something that I don't encourage. I mean, you know, it's really how you kind of, all the years I think leading up to my experience, we never really went after them or tried to really like question the rocks or the sounds they made. We just heard them of the night, and experienced it and went on about our day. And by doing that, I think that they wanted to send stronger messages. And they did in this particular case. And, you have guys coming in and out of there, and they didn't know if this was going to go on permanently or not, I guess. And being that was the crossing, think about you having a little baby one, or the little guys that the mama, would carry, and you got to cross these rivers. Well, you're going to cross at the crossings. You're going to teach those little ones, you're not going to put them in there to have to swim and do all this nonsense and put them in danger. Like, would you throw your kid in the deepest spot, say, go over there, or walk across this over here, this shallow, and teach them, and we were blocking that bridge. And animals too. I mean, even the deer, and that it tells me that through generations that they learn. At the old tie crossing, it's actually a crossing, and it's the one in the river, and I don't think there's another before you get to the concrete bridge, the low water bridge. So yeah, it's a really special area, and I think you personally, Miguel, will have more experiences there, and hopefully get documentation, the documents you need to close the book on this, because I after this experience, I want you to know I was so adamant about it that. I emailed a couple researchers and they never contacted me, and that's been a couple years after it happened. And I've never talked about it again till now with you, other than of course family members and stuff, and people that know you, and um, they know I'm not kidding. But how people process that, they don't want to say, "Oh, come on, you're confused or something." I've never had close people tell me that know you. They know when you're kidding and when you're not. And so it's been, you know, talked about lightly, but never refuted. And when you have the older folks and you go and you tell them about things, my father, like I said, grew up in Appalachia, and he never mentioned it, which tells me he probably had experiences he didn't want to concern me with, because he wanted me to stay comfortable and explore nature, and I did up until that point. So I understand why he wouldn't have, in a way, said anything. But
Yeah.
it's a life changing event, and I think if anybody can experience that part of life, and um, this, I don't know, how do you explain them? They're creatures of this earth. I think they've been here, and we're just getting advanced. And now that we can communicate, so easily, the discoveries are coming, more, popular, and I guess more easily available because people can talk. But but I don't think we've really made any more uh, advancements on being able to actually close the book on them, because these things are super advanced. I don't know how they disappear. But do they disappear? Are they just changing something within me? Because, like I said, I sat there and I don't know how long. Could have been seconds or minutes. I mean, these things were like a quarter mile away when I heard them the next time. And then how they change into the different sounds is just amazing. I don't think there's any animal in the library of all over the world that can mimic perfectly the animals in its surrounding. That's phenomenal. I mean, to be able to process that and be able to actually, it's like speaking every foreign language on the planet. I mean, perfectly. These things can mimic animals like you would not. I mean, it's just shocking how perfect that. When that thing went off and was making those noises, the monkey, the owl, the orangutan, the gorilla, they were perfect. You would swear there's one right there.
Yeah. So it sounded like it was owl hooting, and then it went into like the primate zone.
Yes, sir. It was hooting as an owl, and then it turned into like a chimpanzee, and it morphed into a gorilla. It was building up like it was. It really went off, Miguel, and it went through my body. The sound of it for me, and it was looking down. It had to be looking down at us. So
Yeah.
yes, I see it went through this different sounds, and I kind of took it as it's showing us that there's not there's not a sound out there that it can imitate. So can it talk? Can it, like if I say, "Hey Miguel," over in the woods, can it answer that way? I wonder. Can it say, "Hey, over here"? Can it lure you? I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard they can. They can mimic people, and it's hard to say how they do it, but I just kind of think of it like a parrot. A parrot can do it, so why not Sasquatch? I do believe that disclosure is on the horizon, and government officials will tell us that these things are out there in the near future, because it's only a matter of time until someone gets the next Patterson Gimlin film in 4K, perfect quality,
Yes.
and they're going to be responsible for it. Everyone's going to know that they've been lied to for a long time. So I think it'll be beneficial for them to just say, hey, these things are out there, put up signs warning people that they could potentially run into one of these creatures, and kind of just give people a list of things to do in case they do encounter them. And I know certain states have already started doing that, like Washington State. They put up signs in areas where Bigfoot have been seen before, but I think it'd be important for them to do that, because I've spoken to a lot of bow hunters off air that never told their encounters on the channel, but they said they've ran into these things by Meramec Springs. And one guy said he was bow hunting back there close to the area where I said I was being followed out at nighttime. He said he ran into a giant male, and he said it mind spoke to him, and you could tell it really bothered him. Like, he was terrified, and he didn't want to go on the show. But it's just like, I can't say he's lying. I wasn't there, and this is the same areas I've had my encounters in, and this place hasn't really been talked about. There's been BFRO reports in this area, and like we discussed the other day, this is a prime area for these creatures to be at. You have the spring, which feeds into the Meramec River, and there's all kinds of fresh water all around this area. And there's the caves, there's trout fish, rainbow trout, brown trout, and it has one of the densest deer populations in Missouri. And like you said, there's all kinds of food out there as far as mushrooms and little critters and bugs and different plant life. So it's just the best area for one of these creatures to thrive in, and I think that's why they're there.
I agree, Miguel, and I think that's why they're willing to vocalize and escort you out of there as well. That's why the encounters are in that area common, because that is their home, and it's allowed. They'll let you. I don't know if let you, but they watch us do our thing. But if you get too close, or if they think for some reason, and their thinking, I think, is really evolved. It's really I think they're very, very intelligent. But um, I think that's the case, and you're right. Think about that water. That spring water is just this pure coming out of there, and of course you have the hatchery, and that's also very well protected. You try to sneak in there and you'll be arrested. So that part, no one is in there, and it's seasonal. And then, of course, you have all miles of woods, and the deer populations are cared for. If there's any kind of a sick animal or anything, the conservation department monitors those herds, and they take action, to maintain their health and everything. So that is the great prime area for a clan of them or more to thrive, raise their families, and be undetected. And because to get in there into these areas, and there's so many fingers back in those hollers that are so deep. Like I was saying, there's people may not have even stepped in 100 years, or at all. The Ozarks are deep, and you don't think there's not some seriously untraveled areas, then I suggest you go deeper because that's where they are, and it's a privilege and a great experience. And like you said, I hope that we could get an understanding to where we can actually protect them in a way too. I'd like to see them protected and you know uh, learn from them. These things can walk next to stuff and cloak. They can just how do if there's not things to learn. I mean, like we've evolved and built aircraft and cars. Don't think they haven't evolved. What makes you think that they're not advanced, that they're just out there chipping rocks and with sticks? I think they can build fire. I think they can do most anything as far as kind of primitive living. I mean, they are, where did we learn it all from to begin with? Okay, these animals have been always been, and they're watchers. Some people call them the watchers. I don't know about that. That's kind of a biblical term, but and I didn't feel that it was more so evil that made me feel in danger. It was more of it was just a certainty. It was just listen, you're leaving, and that was it. Now, you want how do you want to process? Do you want to leave, or you want to go to the next level? And there's no question to me. So there is, as far as the mind, and then I don't have the ability. There's people that have higher abilities in certain parts of thought where they can, I guess, interpret um, ESP, I guess they call it, or whatever. But I've never, but it was still able to send me the message. I didn't hear words. It just done it like, through my feelings. And, I've never felt that. I've never had that happen, and I haven't since. You know, and I mean, there's been people saying, "Okay, let's go. This place is, not for us, or whatever." And you feel like you may have to protect your level. I've never felt that, that level of fight or flight kind of feeling, and it was entirely up to us, and we left that next day. And like I said, I've never been back, and that's a place that I grew up going to. It looked, as soon as the vacation schedule came up, I wanted to get my name on there before anyone took those days. It was a big deal. And, I don't go. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I don't blame
that's
you.
why, that's kind of why. And, I mean, I enjoy it. I am all about it, but, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not that I won't go out in the woods and camp and anything, but I just don't kill any animals anymore. I don't. I have every kind of hunting thing, and I've got fish and my deer mounts, and I'm satisfied with it, and I love the conservation, and I understand that the herds, they have to be hunted. It's just part of it. But ever since then, I would just like to observe, and I don't want to. The message I got, is that to them is, like I said, I'll bring a firearm in case a bear or a pig comes on me. I don't. A Bigfoot might stay away from me because I think they know, and that's kind of more of okay. He could. We humans are unpredictable, so we'll stay away from that one and go towards the others. Because I've never heard anything armed camping or anything. Always when I've had like a bow or just out on a float. Um, I anytime I've ever had my and just to make the we did have a shotgun in camp, and it left that. So Larry and I had just our bows, sticks and strings, and they came in, and they've never came in like that. I mean, Yeah, I mean, we've had guys. One year, a friend of ours, Dale, he went there and camped 3 days to save the spot for us, and never encountered anything bad or heard anything that ever worried him. But it usually takes once you settle in and can really hear it takes a day or so for your senses to kind of come alive, and can see through the woods and hear the sounds and kind of get in sync with things. That's that's when I think the encounters are more probable. They'll come in during. You'll be able to hear them and experience them better. Most people just stay a day, and they once you leave, but you stay out a little bit, they'll seek you out. They'll come in your area and let you know they're there, and which gives you opportunity. You know, that's what they did to us. They were always around us, letting us know, and now I know what they are. But back then, we just make fun of each other, or, kind of give it a good laugh off. But I don't laugh too much about it. I mean, none of them are going to come in and do anything unless you harm them. But in my, the boldness and being comfortable out there is great, because you're not out there to harm them. The first minute they've experienced it. And I think the Indians, looking back, I think the Indians warred with them. They used to take their children and things too. Tribes have reported that, there's been wars with them and they've made peace. They've made peace with them. So they're intelligent, and they're close to us. People have said, as I watch accounts, people have been taken by those things. So, and some have got a way to tell their story to be called crazy and everything else. But, you know, look, all I can tell you, and you know, this is, I can't be any more honest. That happened. And
Yeah. No, I believe
those
you.
things,
Yeah.
oh man, that thing was just unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how something like that can walk the earth and us not know it. So yeah, it was good to talk about it and process it, and bring up those memories. I've been up pacing a little bit. I still feel myself getting brought back there. And just to close on this, I kind of for some reason, and this is so strange too. I called my friend Larry, and I hadn't talked to him in, gosh, I don't know, probably 5 years, and got him on the phone. It was a Sunday morning, and hey, what's happening? Hey, Jim. First thing we discussed was that event, and I asked him about a encounter that we had with a creature that sounded kind of like a roar, and he said he did experience it. And what's weird about it, he died that next Sunday. So for some odd reason, I felt compelled to call him, and like maybe we were connected after that day or something, but we talked about it, and the encounter was just as fresh to both of us. And then next Sunday, I mean, to the day that next week, he was gone. So I don't know if there's any. That's really kind of strange to me, but he said he did encounter that, and he said it looked like a cat, but it sure didn't sound like one. I think it was something larger, but that's for another time. But you know, just what made me wonder, Miguel, really is, how we got together on the phone and just done, not mindfully. First thing we discussed, not our jobs or life event. We talked about that evening on the Merrimack River, and I guess he held it in as long as I did. And you know, I wish he was here to comment in on this, because he heard them coming in more, and I'm not sure what else he's experienced. I'm sure it was impactful as well. just kind of by his mannerisms. But yeah, it was interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned yesterday that you've had an encounter with the black cat, and you've also mentioned the Daniel Boone National Forest. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I it's kind of strange, but we were using a Johnny Stewart wildlife call, and I was in a brush pile, and this thing came up, and it roared, okay, and then I think it was sounded like a lion. It was so big. It wasn't. I don't think it was a Sasquatch. Now, here we're going into some other kind of cryptid. This guy's off, but this thing roared. Now, the Sasquatches are masters at, they can imitate any sound. Why would they imitate a lion? That's more, uh, I think, in the neighborhood of the howler, they call them. And my friend saw that, and he's gone now. So they maybe are harbingers of something. And my second encounter with a black creature went out to the Adams Cemetery, where my father's buried, and that's an old Civil War cemetery, and it's just a small one built on a hillside. And went down there to take care of my father's monument, and I looked over, and all the cows are all, just all bunched up, kind of like pushing each other to the back and in the corner of the fence row there. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Wonder what they're up to. What's the matter with them? And I don't raise cattle, so I didn't give it much of a thought until I seen a black creature. Could have been. I thought, well, is that a dog? But what the heck is that? Why is that what's scaring them? And I got out my monocular, and it's like a little pocket monocular, but it's a good one. And when I focused in on it, it was like sleek, and its movements were not like a dog. It didn't bounce or nothing. It just kind of glided, for lack of a, not like floating, but when it stepped, it was smooth, not like a dog, Um, and then it walked behind just like a bush, but not not like a bush, just a bush in the field there, and it never came out the other side. So this is like a field, a hay field, in a way. I mean, but it's a corner of a ridge, and there was a weed like I don't know, probably up to your waist, just like a little bush kind of growing out, a weed that grew there and next to the fence row there. And when it walked behind that, it never came out. And I watched, and um, that was just I can't explain that. It wasn't. Well, if it was your dog, it could disappear. And what's weird about it, Miguel, is the bush wasn't as big as the animal. It's kind of like the front of it went in, and I watched the back of it go in, and the front of it never came back out. It didn't run, it didn't do nothing. It just walked in, and it never came out, like it went through a door. And look, man, I was looking at that thing through my monocular. There wasn't no portal. There wasn't nothing that I could see. How did it do that? That's kind of, maybe these things are on a realm that can go into a spectrum of light that we can't see. I'm not sure. It was just the smoothest thing too, and I saw the front go in. It's kind of like, I'm like, well, that's not as really as big as the animal, and I think I can't understand that. I mean, I don't know how that. And don't get me wrong, it didn't like it crunch down and roll down into a ball. And there was no this is flat out there. It's really very strange, but here we are now. You know, uh, Cemeteries are weird. I think because people don't live that close. I think that's a safe area. I've encountered them, and I don't cross it up to paranormal, that this was flesh. This thing was, and the animals, I wasn't the only one. I mean, those cows, they were worried. So that was a predator. And sure enough, when I got there, the cows were already up there. So I don't know how long this went on, but when it appeared, and Miguel and I probably watched it for 50 yards, sleek, and it was on a line like it was headed for that bush. Wasn't it was 45 degrees going in the wrong direction. It walked right by the group of cows up near me and went straight to that, and it never came back up. Now, was that where the cows were? Was it following their scent? Because I wasn't there, and then they come around that way up to the corner, possibly. But why didn't it? I don't know if anyone's experienced that. And I don't know if the cemeteries have anything to do with it other than I think that's just a non-populated where people seldom, go and don't stay long. And, but again, maybe there's some kind of connection. I'm not sure. I just don't know about that.
Yeah, it very well could be. And you just never know if they're operating on a different frequency, if it has to do with portals, or if it's just something just plain old supernatural. And it really makes your mind wonder. And I know that these experiences have had a profound impact on you, and it's something that you think about every day, and you don't forget about it.
No, sir, you don't. I encountered well, possibly a bear. I mushroom hunting with my dad, and I went down into that area. And what's weird is I saw a conservation truck parked at the toilet while a guy pumped it off. They had they come and they serviced the outhouses there at this particular park, and this was Kenta Collar down off of Mill Creek. And what made me feel weird about it is that why would this guy was a conservation truck pumping it off, and there was a conservation truck, another one, kind of watching. I don't know, it just kind of made me feel weird. I've never seen that either. Usually those, you send the service truck down there to service the toilet. Why would you have another guy watching over you? He was sitting there in the truck watching everything, and right parked. They both pulled in. He backed right up to the other guy's bumper. The other guy had his back, doing his business. He saw the hose going, and the other agent sat there watching. And that just, those are things that I pay attention to now because it didn't really make sense. And I kind of, maybe it wasn't safe there. And I don't think people who they were worried about. So in our government, in our forests, I also run into down in Lane Springs when I was in high school. They had at one time they used to have like a bathroom by their pump. There's a hand pump down there, and there's no after dark that place closes. Well, they had a green. It was like it was green, and it was like a box around that. And it was like that for, a long time. And then one day it was gone. So, our government knows about them. I think the forestry probably protects them in a lot of ways. But I don't know if these things are tied into that. Rumors of the government, trapping them or doing whatever they do. But that's just strange. There's to run across things like that. Kind of like those trees I saw that time in the upside down. Just pay attention, and the signs are all around us, Miguel, that things are happening. And I know, nothing against our forestry service and our conservation program, because I think we have one of the best in this country. But at the same time, we deserve to know what we're dealing with while we're out there in our national forests and stuff, because it's not just guys like yourself, Miguel, that's seasoned and knows what they're doing. There's families out there and children, and people get them out there, and they have the right to know, how to plan. And I think it's not so much them taking your children or anything, but if I would have had that experience as a child or something, it would have probably just mentally, wrecked me. It wasn't a nice experience. And I like to hear where people tell them that give their accounts as hey, it was non-confrontational. These things were they gifted us, and I didn't experience that. And I'm glad to hear that there is, like people, I guess there's certain temperaments and types and looks of these animals and or creatures. I don't really feel. uh, How can an animal walk on two legs and be that big? And I don't really know if they're animals. They may be some just another. I wouldn't say a creature, just another kind of um, being or humanoid that eventually, once they're discovered, and we could actually put them in our ancestry, I guess, as far as our evolution. They're part of it somewhere. Um, so they can communicate. They can have families. They have emotion. They have all the things we have, and I see that. I see that, and you know, just kind of leading up the little ones, like you mentioned, they're the little ones. They're teaching and so on, and um, that's kind of really the only reason I think we encounter them. Other than that, the old ones, I never would ever dream there would be a monster out there. And listen, that was a monster. If there's any monster story you have, that's a monster. And it could have done anything it wanted, and there was nothing we could do about it. Okay, and it didn't. Okay, so I I know, and that's what that also is, when something is that in control, it wasn't threatened, Miguel. It didn't feel like, I got to do this. It just said, listen, I am the one here, and you're leaving. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Listen, that's the feeling I got. It meant no words, just the physical feeling it gave. And it did stun me. And I really wish I knew how long that it just boggles me. Even something that can step 5 foot in a step. How could it go that far? Oh, I had to be in a trance or in a shock, staring at my friend Larry, who was staring at me with our eyes. When that thing goes off, all we could do is just experience it. I mean, you kind of freeze, you know. It's kind of, the music stops, and you freeze, and that's how it was until we just kind of came out of it, looking at each other, just kind of like an abduction thing. I guess people say I woke up and there I was. Well, I don't know how much time went by. I don't either. I don't either. But I know they wasn't like, okay, you guys learned your lesson now. No, we're going to walk away. It didn't happen like that. So there's something to that, Miguel, and I'm curious to hear if others have been entranced by them. You know, uh, I really do, or why that happened, or maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I just over the river and everything. But come on, man. I mean, these things are not little. They make noise when they are actually physically walking on twos. Bipedally, they make noise, and it's not unmistakable. When they come around Larry, and he got close, there was no mistake. And this thing was big, and you know, uh, uh, that morning we were in such a hurry to leave. We didn't even care to try to look at prints or get evidence of that. Or it was kind of we just got up. Are you ready? Yeah, I got everything going. I said, well, let's go. We didn't even so. yeah, we couldn't wait. But the second I got in the boat and we pushed off from the bank, I knew we were fine. We just took our time and floated down. We did what it asked. When I knew it wouldn't be back till dark. So we were out of there before dark. But that's a serious, yes,
Yeah.
profound moment. And as you research, I feel confident, and that you'll get the evidence that you need. I just hope it's done. You're safe. And because there's I don't know how many times people really experience a male. That the leader, and there's no mistake. There's no there. There the way this thing went off and as big as it was, and it was silent too. And maybe they do that by on all fours. And I don't know why people don't see these things then and the accounts until they're right there, 20, 30 yards away, right outside the light, and but others, hear them stomping off hillsides. Through my life, I'm about half deaf. I can't hear that good, from working around machines and you know, I've worked by the hour my whole life, and um, your body's beat up and whatnot, which makes me believe the weaknesses you have they can key on. But yeah, very strange. The month of October is a strange month, and that's a month I think for Bigfoot, the a great month. And anytime now in the fall, and that park's closed. It's open. You can drive in there in the day, and it's good. But of the night, as soon as it gets dark, what is that? 10:30? No, I'm sorry. That's like 5 o'clock. It gets dark at 5 o'clock now. It feels like it's 10 o'clock at night. But as soon as the lights are off, they have a little cabin up there. And I don't want, anyone listening to think that, oh, okay, this guy just told me we can, what? Don't you try to sneak in there. They've got motion cameras and video, and you will be caught. That is a well protected place. But they have no comment when it comes to the activities there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's what I
And
heard about the area that I went and bow hunted, where I saw the brown creature hide behind or the black creature hide behind the tree. The owner of the meat processing plant said, "Now don't trespass. If you do, they'll press charges on you and they'll put you in jail." I was like, "Oh, okay, wow,
yeah, I think I don't I think that they're serious about discrediting you. And I kind of got a little evidence of that myself. That I'd have to show you in person in my phone, Miguel. But
okay, yeah,
there is there if you ask too many questions, and um, they'll definitely assess the threat and deal with it accordingly. And I really believe that. So you kind of have to be careful when because who hasn't asked a conservation? If growing up with us, I knew the conservation. His name was Steve Zapp. Ask Steve about it, and oh, that don't no, that ain't nothing. I asked the same thing. I asked a conservation agent that came on a ranch I lived on in just outside of Denver in Colorado, and I I lived on 100 acres there in the above the Flatirons, and it had quite a large population of elk. And I asked the conservation agent about some strange noises I heard outside my cabin, and he he had no answers. All he mentioned was small game. He said, "Oh, it was probably a fox." There's a scream, and I said, "It wasn't no fox. I've heard foxes," but of course, he didn't know I was raised in the Ozarks. I'm just some guy renting a cabin up there in the middle of Colorado, and that's basically all he had. That what was strange is he had a dog, and uh, he was pretty much loaded up, you know, to face anything. So, I just felt that he didn't want to be dishonest. And I can't say he lied about anything. He just didn't come forth when I blatantly asked him. I'm pretty much a guy that I'll just approach you and kindly ask you if I have a question. I won't beat around the bush about it. So, but he's the second time, and I think that they know. but it could maybe impact the tourism industry, or you know, and what if you know someone was harmed or something? So I think that for whatever reasons they have, they're not coming forth with it, and I don't, until they have to, until you actually have, like you were saying, that perfect video. They're still going to say you did it with this AI stuff now, but I think if you got the picture, and there's not going to be any mistake in it. These things are really they're dense. The one I saw that disappeared, that thing was dense. And it was big. It was bigger than there wasn't no mountain lion. I've seen many mountain lion in Colorado, bear. I've been in Yukon territory. This is not my first day in nature. Okay. When you see things out there and you're like, well, what is that exactly? And your mind's going through, ruffling through, and you can't come up with nothing. And, that's a pretty awesome experience. But at the same time, it's something that, you want answers to. And, I look forward to it. You know, I hope you get them, Miguel. I know you're going to get a lot of evidence, and like I said before, you know, uh, people should model their investigations, like yourself. Don't go in here in any woods and threaten these creatures. You don't think, like I said, oh, there's five of us. We all got 7 mags. We'll be fine. No, you won't. Okay, don't try to bring back a body. Go in there and investigate them. These things have families. Okay, but there's 3 of them, and they were working together, and that's all the evidence I need. Okay, those things could have. Well, they were in charge. So, and luckily they acted compassionately in a way. They didn't harm us then, and we could have just disappeared that day. You killing up people down there, ain't nobody going to show up. They didn't choose that. I think they tried that with the Indians, and it caused big wars. And the Indians, if you can find accounts of that, they talk about those things, you know. But they also, account how stealthy they are, and to outsmart someone that lives where they live. And we're humans with intelligence that's unsurpassed, and they don't have any problem working around us. So there's a lot we could learn from them, and if we could do it, without harm. I've seen accounts of people say, I shot it and I went to get it and it was gone, you know, and we left. Well, if you shot it and dropped it down there, what made you leave? I know why. They had to. Okay. You go back there and try to get that. You're going to deal with something. And, you know, I think that's why these hunters are disappearing, you know, and you go out there and you're a hunter, and you go in the middle of nowhere, and you realize how insignificant you really are. I encourage you, if you think you're the king of the forest, you go out there and you stand out where no one can hear you scream, and there's nowhere to go but the way you came. Okay, or the helicopter that dropped you off. You'll realize how insignificant you really are. Okay, and that's what these animals live with every day. You're not gonna, go into there and because you got a nice shiny piece of iron, think you're gonna solve everybody's questions and answers. That's, it's not gonna happen. All you're gonna do is end up missing. And I think that in some cases, like if that happens, and it may take everyone in the area. And I think it accounts for a lot of David Politis talks about the missing, and being a rescuer. I was a pilot rescue swimmer for the United States Navy, and I'm interested in rescue and search and rescue, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And people just disappear, kind of like the Sasquatch can. And, the handicapped that are involved, in that. Yeah, and it's just a normal thing for a predator to go for the easier, you know, uh, if you're just as big as the healthy one, why not take the easier one? I would. And these things are real. So I think there's a lot. You're pretty brave, and but like you were talking, people like to discredit you. They like to make it. In my case, they kind of question your mental abilities. I'm a single guy. I live by myself. I'm 64 years old, and you go talking like that, people kind of think you're a little nutty because I'm very adamant about it. And as anybody that really had a real life experience would be, but the discredit, you better be ready for it. So it, kind of made me uh, shut my mouth and what do you know? First thing is I start talking about it and asking around about it, I get discredited, and it's a shame. That when I can assure you, I'm telling you the truth. Why would anybody want to change that? Is there something that we need not know about these creatures other than, they're beautiful and they're amazing creatures? You know, those things are, the pictures. I didn't dare open that can up, and I was close enough that I could have just touched it. It was right next to me. And the pictures I've seen, and you know, it all can't be phony. And I mean, I'm sure you have them yourself, and you took them. What else could it be? And Missouri's hid a lot of things. I've seen I've seen hogs, 30 years ago in the national forest. Bear too. Oh, there's no bear in Missouri. The hell there isn't. Okay, I've encountered them, and that was when I was 15. You go and ask us, hey, I seen a bear. Where do you think you saw that at? There ain't no bear in there. And I hunted on a 2,000 acre, private property, and Steve Zapp would have at the cabin there. He would come out and give hunter safety courses and deer season. He'd even come out and check your deer. That's how close he was to this. It was Norman Valley Sportsman's Club, is what it was. My father was a member of it, and it's since been split up. I think 1,000. I think there's 1,000 parcels there now, and that gave me the opportunity to feel comfortable enough around, Steve Zapp, who in my, you're a kid and you're encountering the conservation agent. Those guys are pretty big and powerful and important people that, you want to try to get their respect of them. And every time we'd ever ask about those things, it went to another subject. So they know it. They know what's going on, Miguel, and I don't know what makes them read and be so silent, but I think it's their jobs. I think that would cost them their job.
Yeah, I think so too. They're very tight-lipped about everything, and the area where you had your experiences, that spot is very protected. The conservation agents there don't mess around, and like you said before, they close at 10. Years ago, you could rifle hunt in there. They changed that where it's archery only, and they really protect the Meramec River there too, as far as fishing. So you can really get in some trouble if you overfish or if you do the wrong thing. And it's kind of a tricky spot too, even with bow hunting, because it's bordered by Crawford County and Phillips County. So depending on what side you are, Phillips County has an antler restriction and Crawford County doesn't. So you could really do the wrong thing. And I went in there bow hunting on opening day one year, and before that I called the conservation agents and I had some bow hunting questions. Well, whenever I went in there and hunted, I came out, and that same conservation agent that I spoke with that day was sitting behind my car and wanted to check my tags, my backpack, and It really, I don't know, it was a nerve wracking situation because I thought I was going to be in trouble, but it's like, man, I shouldn't have called them asking, try and do the right thing and ask about the area and, what do I do if this happens? I was just trying to educate myself. Well, that caused them to go to the area that day and kind of watch me. I didn't like that.
Yes, they've I've encountered them on two different occasions myself, and them coming into the camp, driving right into the camp. They'll come. They park up at their cabin at the end of the road there, and of course the old tie bridge crossing. There's an old wagon road there, and they still use it. It's a great road. They drive their triple muffler Dodges right up into your camp, and you better have your stuff because if you don't, I mean, they're serious about their jobs. But come on, man. I mean, you gotta respect them a little bit for doing it. But what you're in, Miguel, and I can tell you this from my own experience. That's the conservation agents, and God bless every one of them. They're for what they do, but that's their area, and who would know better where to go and hunt and fish than them? So when you're in there and they're in there, you're in the best spot you could be. Okay, and they want to make sure that if they could run you out of there, they sure will, because that's their spot. And I was floating. We used to take our canoe and paddle it up and drag it up above the spring, and then go on the other side of the river and bow hunt along the fence, the boundary. And we were coming floating out of there one night, and there was five of them in a jet boat gigging, and they stopped us in the middle of the river, and we told them where we were. Is that the old tie crossing? But yes, sir. Steve Zepp wasn't part of them. Wasn't one of them. And we said, yes, that's where we're at. He said, well, we'll be down there in a few minutes. Because Larry kind of gave him a hard time. What are you pulling us over for? Floating down the river? What do you mean hunting? Does it look like I'm hunting? Floating down the river? He didn't appreciate it because they, the motor, hey, we could hear them over the motor. Hey, let's go check them out. Well, okay. So they did. And it wasn't pleasant. Okay. They come into your camp, and the only reason they did that is, of course, we were all had everything we needed, and he turned around and left. Okay, I sent one guy, a young one, probably the youngest guy, and he come over and he checked everything. I mean, walked the camp, everything, and he even checked our fishing poles to see if we had hooks, because it was fly and jig. And if you had a bare hook on there, you're done. He's going to write you a ticket. And after he got through with all that, he left. And, now you're sitting around, you got, 4 or 5 mines. What the hell was that all about? Well, think about it. They're down there gigging, and on their day off, you're probably in the right spot. And it's just kind of how they use it. And they don't hunt there. I mean, they didn't when I was there. And I kind of know why. I've never seen them stay in the cabin. I've seen their trucks. I've seen 6, 8 trucks parked there. And, that's a lot of conservation agents, man. Okay, and that's why if you're going to go in there and you think you're going to go into that area and you're going to screw around, you better think again. You'll end up in cuffs. Okay, go in there and read the rules. And I'm talking to the listeners here. Please read the rules, because you're in their house. They take it serious. That's where they hunt and fish themselves. Okay, and I can't say they don't hunt. I don't watch them. They're a mile away from us, or 3/4 half anyway. They're way up there at the end of the road, and you don't hear them. We could hear the gravel every now and then. You ain't gonna hear those vehicles that they drive. Those things are so quiet, and when they come up, you think you're gonna have light conversation, and you might, but they're there to do a job, and they're gonna do it. And they're as tough as a highway patrolman. So don't mess around with them. Okay, let them do their job and make sure you have everything always. If you're supposed to carry something, and in my situation, I didn't have my tag. It was in my tent in another pair of camouflage I'd had. Okay, and that's why Larry went off on them. What are you checking in for? We're just floating down the river. We had our bows landed. They took our bows. They looked at every arrow to make sure there wasn't blood on them. You bet. You bet they did. And they didn't come into camp. They did the same thing with our fishing poles. They didn't look in our tents other than shine a light where they could see. But I don't know if they could have or not. Maybe. I don't know if you have rights there. I'm sure there's some kind of but he wasn't too interested in that. So he was prepared to do his job if he needed to. And believe me, he had plenty of backup. So you go down in there and you're going to experience conservation from, can't say I've seen them all the time, but it wasn't uncommon to hear them. Did they come in our camp just that once? That one time to check us, that was enough to teach me. I made sure I had my tag, and God forbid, if I would have killed a deer and had it in the canoe, bringing it down there, I would have been fined, and I don't know, depending on my partner's attitude at the time, arrested. They're not afraid to arrest you, but on a regular basis, I mean, just on a one-on-one with them, you talk to them. They're very knowledgeable. They know everything. They're uh, really awesome for the most part, but don't make them do their job. And you go down there and uh, don't conduct yourself, and respect the forest. I'm sure that they'll do their job, but you know, if you go there, that's gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they go. And they who's gonna go where there isn't nothing? They know, they talk to everybody. There's a network, okay, and they know everything going on. And so look at it as a feather in your cap for doing your homework, because that's other than you and I talking about it right now, and that's a kind of an untalked of secret, except among them, So and it's weird, Miguel, because the cabin is really, well, it was. I haven't been there, but I know it's there today. They don't. Conservation has plenty of money. Anyway, they never stayed in it. I think it's because they would have activity, and it was made of rock. Um, but that just seems strange to me, because they were in a, even when they digged, as soon as they were done, they packed up and they left. That's, as you and I both know, you get something like that going and you go out there, that's really physical, and it exhausts you. It's a lot of work. Camping, you know, people like, oh, let's go camping. We're going to have a great time. Well, it's not such a great time. Okay, as far as you think you're gonna lay in your lawn chair and listen to the birds sing and pop something in the microwave, heck no. When the fire's out, you better build it up. You need water, you're gonna have to preserve it. You want something to eat, you're gonna have to make it. And then also clean up everything. It's nonstop. So if they leave, they got everything right there, and they leave. The rest of us, we're down there burying our coolers. Oh, and so that it's just, I think there's a concern, or maybe they don't want to um, encounter them, so they don't have to talk about them. But I just think that one, like I talked about, and look, man, we've after 9 or 10 years, you kind of have it dialed in where the funnels are, and the best fingers to hunt out there on those ridges. And once we dialed it in, now, like I said, I wasn't in the conservation spot. I was in the Sasquatches. We were taking game out of their immediate area, and it was time for us to stop. We all got them. Well, that's 5, 6, 7, you know, guys would come in, stay 2 days, then at the weekend and leave, or come in during the week and stay 2 or 3 days and leave. And Larry and I were the constant. We were there all the time. And like I said, I didn't kill mine. I got run off. I feel like something from danger. And I finally moved my stand. The one I shot was near the conservation cabin. And it was like traveling. It was, like it was spooked. And I was lucky. I was lucky to get the shot on him. I did it. But that just freaked me out. And, it's like a switch too, Miguel. There's no deer. Well, there were deer everywhere. And now all of a sudden, and that's why it all come together. Once you understand that what's going on, and I can't really testify to the quiet, everything going silent, other than the time I was, moving my stand up on the ridge and got all freaked out. It was dead quiet because we camped next to the river. You always hear the water, and so the crickets and stuff, they'll stop along the water, but I can't really testify much to that because it was always loud and active, and you never really settled yourself too much to listen, when you're that close to the water, other than I think everything went dead silent. Otherwise, I couldn't have heard them walking when they came around our tent. So that's another, when things go silent in the woods and you hear the blue jays screaming, you better stop and take a look at what's around you. And I also recommend wearing a body camera on your back. If you, I've always turned around at when I was younger. That I don't know if you've experienced this or not either, but I always felt like something was following me. And I turn around on the trail and look, and there's nothing. I think if you wore like a body camera on that photoed your back, I think you would capture one, especially in that area. So I don't
Yeah.
think they expect that, and I think the reverse camera, may would work. But after that event, I put cameras and everything. You know, I want to know what's around my property and even in my car. And it's all because of, I don't know what really, I would like to see something that big. And that's my, I really wanted to, wish I saw it and I had the nerve to step out on it, but I'll be, I wasn't feeling, that thing didn't, I just don't think that would be possible. So I'm glad, my experience though was terrifying, but only for the simple reason is, I don't know 100% why it was so aggressive, but maybe that was just because it was the first time we encountered the boss, a male. It could have been the younger ones or other ones that watched us and played and threw rocks and broke things and made noises until um, the boss man, he didn't mess around. That one. The other ones, they say people play gift, the blah blah, and I believe it. But there's some that that's not their job, that's not their role, and unfortunately, he wanted to bring his down to that crossing, and we were there. And there's got to be others, and I mean that. Look for the tie crossing. Look it up. You'll have to look on a map, and you can actually see if the river's gravel bars right, you can actually see the ties. And if I saw them there, that if they lasted 100 years from then, there'll be there another 100. But of course, as the river floods and flows, it covers them and uncovers them. But you can see it on the maps. It's called the tie crossing, and that is, I think they're taught through generations. Hey, this is where you cross the river. This is the ford, and uh, we were interrupting that. and we had for days. So, but we camped there every year. Always heard things. The years before I could hear, I things walking through the water. I mean, it's bipedal. I've heard them cross there. I never raised my head. I'd wake you up out of your sleep, and I ain't crawling out of here. It's cold out there, and I lay down and go to sleep, and it all come together, you know, after years and had the experience, all those things come flooding back like, wow, they're real. And I had that happen and that happened. And it's profound. It's something that, here we are talking about. I keep going on about because it's like a release. I mean, there's so, spending your time in the woods and the wilderness, there's a lot to learn and get from. And when you discover this, once you finally get what you need, and I think it'd be a step in the step we need in the right direction to actually learn what we can learn from them.
Mm. Yeah, I
So,
agree with that
our,
100%. And I'm going to keep
yeah,
researching. Hopefully, one of these areas where people have had Bigfoot encounters puts out some results, but you just never know. I've had them here around my property, and it's just like, where do they go? They disappear. But yeah,
you
Jim, I
bet.
really appreciate you for taking the time to talk about your experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And like I said, this is the same area that I've had encounters and experiences in, and it's certainly an area to think about. But yeah, I'm gonna camp here next week at a remote cabin right off the Meramec, and it's bordered up to Woodson K Woods. So we're going to try to do some Bigfoot research there, and hopefully we can meet up at your area where you had your experience at. And I'd really like to meet up with you if that's possible.
Oh, I would enjoy that, Miguel, and thank you so much for taking your time and your listeners to listen to my encounter. You know, all I could tell you is in your listeners is what you're seeking is a special thing, and I think you'll find what you're looking for if you open yourself up enough to it, and it's really beautiful. So, I mean, I was scared that I've been around them. Those things I've been around. They've been around us every time we've been down in there, and there's no harm done. So respect it, and you know, uh, enjoy it because it's a great, it's a life changing experience, and I can't say it's for the negative. It's made me a better, more awake and alert in life person. So thank you, sir, very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. All right, Jim, thanks once again for sharing your Bigfoot encounters and experiences with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And it really meant a lot that you reached out, and I was so excited to hear these experiences from my area. And I knew these things were out there. Whenever I experienced it, I knew that there would be other people out there that had similar experiences in the same area. So I was so happy to hear these experiences from you, and I know that they've stuck with you ever since, and they have with me as well. These experiences terrified me, and I'll never look at that area the same way again. I know without a doubt they're in there, and there is certainly Sasquatch roaming the Meramec River, especially near the Meramec Springs area. You may not encounter anything your first time going in there, maybe your second or years to come, but if you go in there enough times and you stay until dark, you might hear or see something extremely strange. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for listening today. If you guys can, like the podcast, subscribe to the channel, and if you guys can, support the channel in any way possible. There's merchandise, so you can use the thanks button, or you can simply just comment down below. Until the next one, be safe out in the forest, and watch your back, guys. These things are out there. Take care.